And here's NBC's Chuck Todd yesterday suggesting on the Today Show that Bowe Bergdahl is getting swift-boated by his fellow soldiers. Cut 7, NBC.
They did not expect this backlash on Bergdahl himself. I've had a few aides describe it to me as we didn't know that they were going to swift-boat Bergdahl. And Matt, of course, that's a reference to that political fight back in 2004 over John Kerry's military service that became so controversial in that campaign. So there's some fighting words there, Matt.
Swift-boating. Swift-boating. Of course, they're talking about John Kerry and that whole thing, but frankly, the best definition I ever heard about swift-boating was to tell the truth about somebody's military record in a way that Democrats don't like to listen to it or hear it. Van Jones from Crossfire, Democrat pundit, operative. Here he is yesterday on CNN, cut number 6.
You remember that warm feeling you got when you first heard that we had finally gotten our last captive soldier home from Afghanistan? Remember that feeling? I do too. Unfortunately, the Republicans desperately want us all to forget about it. Now, I admit there are some important questions we've got to answer here, but Sergeant Bergdahl isn't even out of the hospital yet, and already the airwaves are being filled mysteriously with former soldiers just trashing the guy. What is going on here? Well, it turns out that there are Republican operatives who are working behind the scenes to get some of those guys on television. This is an orchestrated smear campaign.
Mysteriously, soldiers who served with him and think he's a deserter and a traitor are mysteriously popping up on the airwaves to smear him. And it's a Republican orchestrated effort. Well, so let's listen to a prominent conservative Republican like, I don't know, MSNBC's Chris Matthews, host of Hardball, cut number 8. You remember Chris, the one who got a thrill up his leg every time he heard Barack Obama give a speech?
They didn't expect the quote-unquote swift-boating of Bergdahl, trying to bring back memories of the whole political fight with John Kerry back in 2004.
Swift-boating of John Kerry was a dishonest PR campaign.
Right.
No, swift-boating is totally misused here. Swift-boating is when you make up stories and you misconstrue the evidence from, you don't like the way that John Kerry opposed the Vietnam War after he got back and turned it into an attack on his service over there. Totally dishonest. These are questions raised about a guy who left post, wrote letters, sent signals that he was leaving post as a matter of principle. He didn't believe in the war effort. And we don't know what's worse here, but the idea that where's the dishonesty in the portrayal of Bergdahl so far? That I haven't seen it.
Of course you hadn't seen it because it isn't true. Now, it's interesting, though, Chuck Todd, and that was, again, Chuck Todd. So Chuck Todd has become a poster boy. This prominent political reporter for NBC is going around desperately trying to convince viewers that this is a swift boat campaign because liberals didn't like what was the truth that was told about John Kerry's military service. They thought that was terrible. The truth about Kerry's military service was brought to light by the so-called swift boat Veterans for Truth. So now Chuck Todd is going around swift boat, swift boat, swift boat. Listen to all those media cuts we have. Those are all different places. Morning Joe, MSNBC's Morning Joe, Scarborough, Chris Matthews' show, NBC Nightly News. Chuck Todd is trying to convince him. This is the media narrative here. Chuck Todd trying to convince millions of people watching, well, this is nothing but a swift boat type smear campaign. Even Chris Matthews isn't buying what he's selling. And this guy, Chuck Todd, he's the chief White House correspondent for NBC News.